happy to have you.
It's good to be here.
Yes.
Well, if you haven't met me before or seen me, I am Brett Harper. I am a youth pastor out of Greenwood, Indiana, and you might know me better as Victor's kid. Might be the best way to do this. If you want to go ahead and turn over to John chapter 10. I'm blessed at my church. I'm from Greenwood, Indiana, and that's where my church is. I work for Village Bible Church, which is a wonderful church, and I'm blessed to work for them. And the biggest blessing there is that we love the Word. We love the Word of God. That's what we focus on. Actually, our curriculum is nice because we basically pick a book of the Bible and we go all the way through it. And we go verse by verse, and that's our kind of big thing. And I love it because I always know what I'm teaching the next week, because I know I'm just going to continue in that book. And it's hard to take things out of context, and sometimes it gets a little hard just figure out how to explain what's going to happen next. But we love it for our students too. I'm blessed to I run a youth group for middle school through high school, and then I run a young adult group because we found out they were graduating and needing somewhere to go. So I'm blessed to run both of those groups, and then I also kind of help oversee music at my church, and I help out with that where needed. But I think it's appropriate, Happy Mother's Day, and this is an appropriate message to look at, because we're looking at Jesus, the Good Shepherd, and I think of my mother and all the guidance she had to give me, and all the prodding she had to give me as I was guided growing up, So as you know, there are 4 of us Harper boys, and we're all about my size, and we all have about the same IQ. And, growing up, I'm blessed that we're blessed that we had a patient mother as we handed her every bug and insect that we found and discovered as we failed at many sports. And but it's been wonderful because as we've grown up, it's continued. She continues to give us wonderful advice. She continues to just point us to where we need to go, and that's to Jesus. And so that's where I hope to point us this morning as we look at this, as we look at him being the good shepherd. As I go into this, as we go into this passage, we need to understand sheep first. We need to understand kind of why he says he's the good shepherd. And so first of all, there's a kind of cool phenomenon that would happen in those days where the sheep would know the shepherd's voice. So the way it would work is that the sheep would, the shepherds would bring all their sheep and they'd put them into the sheepfold at night to be safe while they were sleeping, and then they would come back and they would yell at their sheep, and the sheep would come, and all their sheep would come to them because they knew their voice. And I'm a young man that part of my job is I disciple young men, and so what that looks like is I get together with a young man usually once every week or two, and we have a Bible study together. Sometimes it looks like errands if I'm really running behind that week. I'm like, you're going to get to see how a youth pastor shops for a deodorant. That's what we're going to do this week. And but one young man of mine, his father works on a farm, and they just recently had one of their sheep give birth. And I said, so does the new sheep, does he come to your voice? And he said, Doug, who do you think he gets food from? I said, well, that makes sense. The second thing about sheep is that they're not very bright. They're not very smart. Actually, we were watching a video. We were teaching on something similar this last week, and we showed the kids a video of the sheep, and they pulled it from this crevice in the earth. There had been like an earthquake. The sheep takes about 2 leaps and then jumps directly back in the same crack that they had pulled it out of. It's the funniest video I've ever seen. And this whole analogy gets a little bit more offensive when we realize that we're the sheep. When we realize that this is us that he's likening us to, because we all need something to follow. We're all seeking after something. As I've been working with students, as I've been working with people and looking through the Bible, I realize that we're all following something. We're all obsessed with following something. Even those that say, well, you don't understand, I'm a free spirit. Even those people, they're obsessed with unattachment, aren't they? They're looking for something else. Even those people, there's some that say, well, I believe in free love. I believe we should love whoever we want. But yet they're just obsessed with non-committance and obsessed with that needing to be wherever they can be. They're obsessed with liberation. And then there are the other things that we look at where we're obsessed with following. Maybe it's an addiction. Maybe it's whatever it is. We know we need to follow something. That's our internal just need. It's our fleshly need. And so Christ tells us here, this is who you need to be following. So if you'll turn to John chapter 10, verse 11 with me. It starts with, I am the good shepherd. And I love these I am statements. They call back to all the way to Moses and the burning bush when he says, who are you? And God says, I am who I am. One of the most amazing statements of all time, saying that he was here before us, he is always here, there's nothing that caused God, he is just there, he is over everything. And so here we learn about Jesus being the good shepherd. I am the good shepherd, and why? Because the good shepherd gives his life for the sheep. But a hireling, he who is not the sheep shepherd, one who does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees. And the wolf catches the sheep and scatters them. The hireling flees because he is a hireling and does not care about the sheep. I am the good shepherd, and I know my sheep, and am known by my own. As the Father knows me, even so I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have which are not of this fold, them also I must bring. Then they will hear my voice, and there will be one flock and one shepherd. Therefore my Father loves me, because I lay down my life that I may take it again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again. The command I have received from my Father. What a beautiful picture we get here. And we know on earth, life for us, for each one of us, setting an example, showing us what love is, putting his hands on people that needed it, speaking to people who have never been spoken to before. Because someone else had decided they weren't enough, someone had decided they weren't worth it, Christ stooped down. He literally stooped down and talked to these people. And he compares this to the hireling. He compares this to, and we see the hireling's qualities here. The hireling is one who does not own the sheep. He sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep. The hireling flees because he is a hireling and does not care about the sheep. And if you allow me to kind of stretch this, there are many hirelings we are obsessed with following. I mean, how on the nose that social media now has a follow button. It's literally the terminology, and now it's all of them. It used to be just like one said follow, now all of them use that terminology. Because, right, that's what happens, right? We get on and we're just looking for like a recipe, and suddenly we're really invested in this person and we like them, so we start to follow their example, we start to follow their ideas, and we get obsessed with it a little bit. Sometimes maybe it's the news that we're following and that we need to have every day. I've been blessed to lose a little bit of weight, and so I spend a lot of time in the gym, on the treadmill. I've made best friends with it. It's awful every time. It doesn't get easier. They lie to me. But as I'm on the treadmill at Planet Fitness, they have all the TVs up there. So they have all these TVs, and kind of like how that one's hung, where I can see them all. And they put Fox News directly next to CNN. Two TVs, and it's the funniest thing I have ever seen. I love it every time because they'll put the same story on, but it looks like two different stories. It does not look like I'm watching the same thing. Because everything's got an agenda. No matter what we're following, they've got somewhere they're trying to lead us. From self-help books, to models, to celebrities that we enjoy, to wonderful sports athletes, whatever we're following, whether it's a wonderful role model in our life, we're reminded here that nothing is going to love us like Christ. Because again, even if they want to care, we know that that's the nature of these things. But, I've been obsessed with that lyric in the song, What a Beautiful Name, Christ has no rival. As we just read in Isaiah, it said he has no equal. There is nothing that we're going to follow or nothing that we try to follow, nothing that can offer you health, nothing that can offer you a good life advice or amazing stocks or whatever it is. Nothing can offer you life and wonderful paths like Christ can. I'm blessed with wonderful parents. I have the coolest parents in the world that encourage me and push me towards Christ, but they're still not going to be equal with Christ. I have wonderful friends that remind me of Scripture all the time, and I'm blessed with them. I have a wonderful church staff that I work with back at home, but none of them can equal Christ. Everything else will perish, but it's Him that I continue to look at. Christ is still my best example. He is still the best shepherd I can have. Why? Because they don't own me. Christ owns me. Right? That's what it says up there. The hireling does not own the sheep. I was thinking about this, because I was thinking about rentals. Right? We don't take care of rental things as well as we take care of things we own. One example of this, so last August, my beautiful 2001 Honda Civic was sitting innocently on the side of the road, and an exterminator backed right into it. Nailed that sucker, broke the bumper. I had just put a new engine in it. Furious. Anyway, they promised to fix it, so I get a rental car. And I was sitting with Brock in the waiting room and at the collision center, and they passed by in a newer Chevy Malibu. I'm thinking, great. Then they passed by in a 2021 Dodge Charger. And I grabbed Brock and I said, Brock, God is still good if they give me the Malibu. So then the guy comes in and he says, we're giving you the Charger. And I said, why? I'm 24. I was 24 though. All right, why? And so I get that, and I go and take care of it. You know, I never swept it out. I never checked the oil. I didn't really care about the tire pressure, right? I drove that thing like it was my job. And then they told me not to bring it back with any gas in it because they had already paid for that tank. So before I returned it, I took like 6 laps around Greenwood just to make sure it was empty. I used every bit that I could. And I went fast. It was awesome. It was a wonderful week of my life where I got to be in that rental car. And I didn't have to maintain it. That wasn't my job. It wasn't mine. I was just borrowing it. But then when I got my beautiful Honda Civic back, I immediately swept it out. I checked the oil on it. I actually changed the oil on it again. And then, I checked the tires and I checked my car. Because it's mine. Because I own it. And obviously, my love for my Honda Civic doesn't come anywhere near Christ's love for me. Because he bought us. He owns us. We are twice his. One way to think about it is we were created by him and then bought by him again. It's through that life. Because he gave his life, we get to know that he owns us. Hebrews 2:14-15 say it this way. It says, insomuch then as the children have partaken of flesh and blood, he himself likewise shared in the same, that through death he might destroy him who had the power of death, that is the devil, and release those who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. With his death he freed us. Colossians 2 says, in you he made alive through his death, nailing our debt on the cross with him. He bought us back. We are twice his. Right? That's that beautiful gospel message that he created us and we fell from him. We turned to all these different things. We tried to follow other shepherds, other hirelings. In the midst of that, in the midst of our rebellion, he said, I'm going to die for you. And he came and lived a perfect life, as we're reading about now, him on earth. And then he was resurrected after he died. And now we get to have a relationship with him. Now we get to speak with him, and that's the relationship he describes next. This is verse 14. And I know my sheep and am known by my own. And I can't think of a more comforting verse. Right? Because it's describing a relationship. I heard one pastor say, you can know about Christ and not know Christ. Those intellectual believers. One way of putting it is, from a young age, I grew up with Jeff Gordon memorabilia everywhere. I love Jeff Gordon. If you walk into my apartment right now, I have 3 posters of him above my TV. Sometimes when I get bored, I watch race highlights. Love Jeff Gordon. I don't know Jeff Gordon. I know about him. I don't know Jeff Gordon. I wish I did. I think that'd be cool. But if I passed him on the street, he would not wave back to me probably. But I know Christ. And Christ knows me because it's a deeper thing. Right? Because we can know about somebody, but it's when we sit down and we know them. It's when we sit and look at them in the eye. Something we kind of crave now with the amount of Zoom meetings and the amount of internet that we have. Something that we get to sit and we get to learn about somebody. We get to get deeper. And that's how we have Christ, where we get to sit with him and pray to him and have a relationship and have him speak to us through his word and through our experiences as he's guiding us. What a beautiful thing. I know my sheep and I am known by my own. I can't get over that. It gives me chills because that's the difference. It's a beautiful friendship. Imagine being friends with your Creator. And 16 tells us this is all the sheep. Because he says, and other sheep I have, which are not of this fold. He's talking about Gentiles. He's talking about us. Those that, because he came for the Jewish people, but we get to be all together with him. He says, I must bring, and they will hear my voice, and there will be one flock and one shepherd, knowing that we're all believers together, we're all part of this family together, meaning that we can't kick anybody out. He came for the weird people, he came for the annoying people, he came for those that don't know him quite yet, that we're still teaching, that we're still telling about him. He came for all. And then 17 and 18 tell us again his power. Therefore the Father loves me because I lay down my life that I may take it again. And the significance there is that he's giving his life for us. And I have the power to take my life. It's my life. I have authority over it. I can jump off a cliff if I like, but I don't have the power to take it again. I don't have the power to come back. Only Christ had that. And he did. And that's why we celebrated Easter a few weeks ago. That's why we celebrate now, knowing that he is alive, knowing that he did not die a second time, that he is alive forevermore. So we get this beautiful picture of Christ being our shepherd. That's how it works with us and him. And then I wanted to go to two other passages today, and I'll go a little bit more quickly through them. But one is in Luke chapter 15, if you want to flip over there. And Luke chapter 15 contains some beautiful parables. One being the prodigal son that many of us know. But he opens up with the parable of the lost sheep. So Luke 15 verse 1 says, "Then all the tax collectors and sinners drew near to him and hear him. And the Pharisees and scribes complained, saying, 'This man receives sinners and eats with them.' So he spoke this parable of them, saying," and I want to point out first his audience. Because we see two people following two different things, neither of them being Christ. Because we have the sinners and tax collectors on one side, right? And they're following rebellion. They're following the need to do whatever they want. They can drink and smoke and do whatever, and they're going to follow that, and that's what they're following, that path. But then we get the kind of other side, the righteous, where they're following what they can do and what they feel like they have earned. They're following their own self-righteousness and pride, saying, "I've done this and I've done a really good job, and God's probably really happy with me." And neither of them are saying, "I need to follow Christ because I know I am nothing, because I know I am a sinner." Neither are choosing that. So he's addressing both. Because it's easy for us to fall on one side or the other. It's easy for me to rebel, but it's also very easy for me to say, "Look at what a good job I've done for God. He's probably so happy with me, and he's probably going to give me a high five in the form of money." Right? And that's not how that works. But then look at this. I love this. This is the shepherd in action, starting at verse 4. "What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he loses one of them, does not leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one which is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulder, rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and neighbors, saying to them, 'Rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep which was lost.' I say to you that likewise there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 just persons who need no repentance." Christ goes after the one. And I looked it up. Sheep cost like $200 if you want one. That's like the commercial price. So I would also go look for that sheep. That's like $200 that I would like want in my pocket, I guess. And so we see he goes and he gets them. He leaves the others. He wants that. It's the Father's will that none should perish, but all that come to him. He enlists us in this beautiful commission to go evangelize, to tell people about Christ, and give that gospel message that I just mentioned, showing them that gospel in love, doing good works, and again, sending people out to, no matter how annoying or weird or immoral or vulgar or self-righteous, they all belong to Christ. They are his. We're talking about children of God. We're talking about people created by God. And we get to tell them, "Hey, this is my life. This is why it's changed. This is why I follow this beautiful." And we know that there's a party in heaven when that happens. I love that picture. He says, "I say to you likewise, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner." I had a young man that through our ministry last year, he found Christ. I think there was a party in heaven that day. There was rejoicing that day, and there's rejoicing now as I've gotten to watch him grow and become more and more like God. As I've watched him, I remember he prayed for us the other day at the end of our discipleship, and hearing his prayer from when he started, and hearing him really want to talk to the Father was so mind-blowing to me. So we know God is our shepherd, that we know him, that we are his sheep, we belong to him. We see him in action as he went and sought our heart. Right? Because that's how this works, where he goes and gets us. And finally, that intellectual belief of, I've heard about Christ, or I know church is good for me, it changes and something clicks and we say, I need to give my life to him. And then we're going to look at Psalm 23, because I want that to be our application section as we look at this. Psalm 23 is a psalm that, if you want to flip there, feel free. It's a psalm that is wonderful, and many of us are familiar with it. I remember my dad had a Bible case that said, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," until actually the first time I ever preached was at this church, and on the way here, my dog destroyed that case. We had the dog in the car. If you want to know more about that story, please talk to me afterwards. It's actually kind of gross. But I remember my dad had that. It's very popular. But I want us to read this. It says, "The Lord is my shepherd." Again, it's created this picture. "I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." So what does this mean for us? I've got 3 things, and then I'll quit. Firstly, allow God to guide you. Allow him to be your shepherd. And I say allow because sometimes we want to fight it, because we know he's always guiding us. There's a man at our church, his name's Bill, and he makes an excellent fudge. So I was actually introduced to him as Bill Fudge. Found out like 2 years later, that's not his last name. Blew my mind. But he gave his testimony, and we have a men's prayer breakfast that my father leads, and we were praying, and he gave his testimony, and it was blew my mind because he said, before I knew Christ, I still get to look back, and I knew he had seen me through so much and kept me safe through so much. As he told us his stories as a veteran and as a factory worker, he said, God guided me even when I didn't know him. So as I say, let him guide you, I can willingly give that up. Stop fighting him. Let him teach you. Let him reach you. Let him, because as we look at this picture, right, it says, he makes me lie down in green pastures. And sometimes we decide we didn't like the pasture he led us to. Even though it's enough, even though there's comfort. Sometimes we decide that we want better tasting water, because you guys have the best tap water here in Boswell. Like, it tastes so good compared to, and like, I'm going to take like 2 gallons of it home with me. But sometimes we decide we want better water, or sometimes we decide we want something a little bit more, like this isn't sparkling water, but it's enough because he takes care of us as he guides us. Because we see what it leads to. It says he restores my soul. We get spiritual restoration as our